I'm Barry Reid, and I'd like us to begin a journey through podcasts on my friends and I are still thinking about a title, but maybe The Presbyterian would be a good title for this. Today we have come to Ballycarry, a small village in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. I live just a few miles north of here in the port town of Larne. Served for some years in the Presbyterian ministry, and the last few years I've been struggling with ill health. So those of you that know me or see me might be unfamiliar with the curly hair. 9 months ago I had no hair after a bone marrow transplant, which didn't really work, and in my mid-40s I was diagnosed with a mutation of my plasma. So it's in the bone marrow, a cancer, and I've received numerous chemotherapies, and my hair quickly grew back, and for the first time in my life I got this curly hair, but the cancer sadly grew back at the same rate as my hair. So I'm in end of life care now, and I just wanted to make a series of videos where we talk and think about Presbyterianism. What is it? Where's it going? And what does it look like today? Here in Ballycarry would be regarded as the first settlement of a group of people with new ideas, a new way of thinking, Presbyterians. Next to us, we have Bryce, regarded as the first Presbyterian minister to reach these shores. 1613 is grave. Now, you'd easily know that Presbyterians don't really believe in the consecration of space whenever you see the state of his grave. But and there's the old Presbyterian church here, probably about 1642, around that time. So here in Ballycarry and over here is the broad island. So it was known as Island McGee, just across Larne Loch, and the Irish Sea. Now, it's not unusual for people from Scotland and the big island next to us to be on the shores of this smaller island. We've visited, intermarried for generations, Vikings and Normans, a long, long history. But King James I makes a land grant to plant this province, especially of the island of Ireland, of Ulster. And of course, he's the king. And the idea is that if you give people something, they'll always be indebted to you. They'll be good, loyal citizens. Not a bad way of thinking. Ulster in Ireland doesn't cost him anything. It's a bit of a wild, unruly place, a wet, harsh climate. But there were loads of people that thought to take this offer up. But at the same time as the plantation of Ireland was taking place, there were winds of change in thought, government, power throughout Europe. And rebellion, the sound of rebellion, was all over Europe. And the Presbyterians brought with them this new form of government in the church. A government that did not need a pope, did not need a bishop, a government of the people, a government which took seriously the priesthood of all believers in the church and in the community of Christ. So the Presbyterians were not going to be great citizens. They were not going to be in the favour of the establishment of the government of the day. The established church, the Anglicans, or what would become the Church of Ireland, was going to be given the favours, the favouritism. king is not head of the church. This was radical. This was almost treason. When the king would ask, what bishop do these strange people answer to? Because the bishop answers to me as the king. Well, the answer was they don't answer to a bishop. It was a frightening thing, a frightening idea for its day. The English Civil War would take place. Oliver Cromwell and the parliamentarians. One of the most shocking things in the history of the British Isles was when they chopped off the head of their king, regicide, King Charles I. Someone that had been put there by God to rule is executed. Things are changing. The way to think about power and government, there's a massive shift on. Also then, what takes place, or what is it that replaces the Pope, the Archbishop? Where do we find authority? Well, the Presbyterians are vesting all authority in what we might call a paper Pope, in the Bible alone. This is going to continue to bring forward a Protestant problem, if you want, and that's one of authority. What does the Bible actually say? And there's going to be much tension about that there. And there still is, of course. Once we've removed a pope or a historic instrument of authority, and we claim that our authority is held in a written word, then of course that's up for interpretation. And the Presbyterians, the non-conformists, are riven with schism. They don't all agree, they can't agree, and even that from the earliest times there were different sects of Presbyterians that arrived in this island. There was Covenanters, Burghers, Anti-Burghers, all sorts and different viewpoints of Presbyterianism. This feeling of rebellion, this feeling of power for the people, liberty and justice for all, not just for the elites, not for friends of the king, but civil rights and liberty for all, was right at the very heart of this new government, of this new way of thinking. And of course, here in Ireland, the reception for the non-conformists, the Presbyterians, would not be always warm. The establishment was not on their side. And that opportunity would arise to go to a new world, and many would move from this little island on the western periphery of Europe to the new world, to greater things. And there in America, in the colonies, they would form a great republic, a republic where there was no need for a king, where liberty and justice and freedom for all was paramount. Francis McCamey, ordained and born in Remilton, County Donegal, the west side of this little island, is known and recognised as the founder of Presbyterianism in America. He, like all Presbyterians, believed in minimal government, very minimal. So the Declaration of Independence is signed by the colonies, and they want to break free from the king and from what they see as tyranny, and to be free. Religious freedom is their dream. Religious freedom and freedom in all areas of life is their goal. It was a different time. It was a different time in Europe, religiously, politically. But it wouldn't be too long, of course, till that old human longing for a king or for a leader would take precedent again. Not long after the execution of King Charles I, his son, Oliver Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell will be Lord and Protector, but the people wanted some form of a king, and King Charles I's son would come back and the royal family would be re-established in Britain, although with very little power, if any. The French, they did away with their monarchy, Viva la Republic. But it wasn't long until Napoleon was crowned as their emperor and seen as their leader. The Old Testament, the people continually call for a king, although God again and again asked them to make him king and Lord of everything. And they keep crying for a king like all the other nations had. And in the Presbyterian Church, similar things happen. These people believe in a minimal government. No popes, bishops, tyrants, leaders of that nature. And before we know it, we have a wealthy body, an institution, an establishment. We have people that are now called our leaders. We have an institution in Belfast which taxes our congregations. That if we wish as a congregation, an assembly, a congregation of the church, to spend money, to buy things, we must go and ask permission. What to do with our own money. Who owns our buildings? Who has the deeds? If you're a Presbyterian today, ask who holds the deeds to the buildings of your church family and congregation. These people earn grand sums of money. A dwindling church that's in decline, and yet that superstructure and establishment gets bigger and wealthier. I guess the need for people over us is great, because from a human point of view, it always gives us somebody to blame. If somebody will take our responsibility. In Northern Ireland today, we don't have what we might call a local devolved government. It's sort of been on strike over issues. We have a power-sharing executive. It's a compromise because of the situation in Northern Ireland. Now, the truth is it's been out of operation for years and years before this. Nobody really misses it. Nobody really needs it. It's just a complete waste of money. But the thing we like about it is we feel that there's people there we can blame. There's our health service. If Stormont could only be together, it would be wonderful. It would all be sorted out. And people to be held responsible for things that are our responsibility. So that is the human longing for a king, for people over us. Doesn't make it right. Over here, if we can turn the camera around, we'll see what years ago, hundreds of years ago, was called the Broad Island. And this was the earliest settlement of Presbyterians. The settlers mostly from Scotland. Scotland's only 15 miles on across the Irish Sea. It's maybe a bit of a blur for our phone camera. So, but that's Island McGee. And I'm sorry to disappoint what they today are called the Islanders. It's not really an island. It is joined onto the mainland, but it was known as the Broad Island. In 1711, there was people tried for being witches there. It was an age of religious fervour. And of course, John Owen and other English Puritans were writing books on how to detect witches, as was King James I. And 7 women and 1 man was tried in Carrickfergus, just south of here, for witchcraft. And their fate we're not historically too sure of. We know they were imprisoned, maybe some was executed. But this establishment that is now calling itself Presbyterian, a group of leaders, of powerful, wealthy people that lorded over others. Today, the witch hunts haven't gone away. And we're going to hear from people in these podcasts who have been bullied, harassed, unjustly treated, the very antithesis of what Christianity is about. And we're going to be having interviews and talks to hear from them. I'll be telling my own story. And there are some of you who have known me from my ministry in County Tyrone, and others don't know me. And I look forward to telling my story and to meeting with others who have been on the end of the abuse of power. And of course, the irony is, it is a power that Presbyterians in their inception and in their hopes and in their dreams hope that people would never ever have to abuse. So we can give you a quick look at Bryce's grave. You've been looking out over the broad island, Isle of Magee, the first settlement of Presbyterians here in County Antrim, in Ireland as it was. They didn't come to Northern Ireland. It's a more recent idea. But I'll be talking to you again soon, and you'll hear my story and the stories of others. Thank you. Here I am at Bryce's grave. So 1613, we reckon, the first Presbyterian to come to this island. It was early days, more of a missionary field, and they worked hand in hand with the establishment, with the Episcopalian or Anglican Church. So needs must, they couldn't find ministers for the new people that were being planted and arriving on these shores. But as I've already said, we evidently don't hold to the consecration of space. It has fallen into disrepair, but this is in the old ruins of a Church of Ireland, of one of the churches of the establishment, Temple Corin.